And companies spend billions of dollars on disengagement, on sick days. Whenever you feel stressed, what do? You call in sick because you don't want to deal with that person or whoever is the stress is causing you. So it's very difficult for companies to overcome. And what's happened? We just turn people around. That's what I used to do. Just find another person, find another person. Well, the company really struggles because they can't really move forward, because every time you have a new person, it takes time for people to learn, to get on board, and it becomes very, very challenging. And what we found is research after research shows that relationships are the key to your mental health, to your job satisfaction, to your well-being. Relationships. Now, when I talk about relationship, it's really the connection that you have with your boss, most important with the boss, because the boss is really the key, what we call attachment figure, where you tune in. It's like they're parents. We are very tuned to our bosses. They're our lifeline. So it's very important for us to really understand the connection to our direct reports, because you're the boss, now you take that role, and the peers. All of the people that you depend on become extremely important to your amygdala, to your nervous system that shows, I'm safe, I'm okay, somebody got my back. When employees suffer in their relationship, they become what we call disconnected, and they don't pay attention to it. They don't know how to pay attention to it. They don't know how to repair it. They get stuck in these negative cycles that deteriorates their mental health, deteriorates their performance and engagement and collaboration. Everything starts to suffer when the relationship is disconnected. The CPP Global Human Report put out a study, this is Maya Breaks company, that in 2008, companies have spent 3 hours per employee per week on workplace conflicts. In 2022, they did the same study. It actually went up to 4.2 hours per week. And when I looked at that number, I was wondering, like, why? We have all this leadership training. People are going to emotional intelligence training. They're becoming much more attuned with each other. What is going on? Why is it happening? And this is a big number. I mean, if you calculate, you take 4.2 hours per week per employee in your company, how much money is that going to add up? It's a huge number. What I learned through my research and working now with over 1,000 training sessions with individuals, teams, organizations, the missing link is the emotional connection. So what does that mean? That when people become disconnected, they don't know how to talk about it, so they start to get into what we call habitual responses, where they start to complain or blame, defend, or start to withdraw. So they don't know how to repair that connection, relationship connection. So conflict, whenever you see the conflict, it's actually the inflammation. The virus is that emotional disconnection. The attachment significance has been broken. And now we don't know how to fix it. When we work together, we depend on each other. And there's a part of our brain that becomes very attuned to what's happening in our connection. And whenever there's a secure connection, when I feel, like Jack pointed out, that you care about me, that I'm important to you, that you value me, that I can count on you in the moment of stress, that you will be there for me, my nervous system is calm. It's relaxed. In fact, the prefrontal cortex is accessible in that moment. If I get that disconnect suddenly, and I don't know how to talk about it with you, I'm going to either avoid or I'm going to pursue, like Chip was talking about, I'm pursuing, by behaviors that actually creates more and more disconnection. But we really get stuck. We get stuck in these negative cycles. And what happens is you lose the emotional balance. So again, the neuroscience shows the amygdala in the back of your mind is relaxed when you have a secure connection. As soon as there's a trigger of you not responding to me, or suddenly you look kind of like weird, and now I don't know, my amygdala is activated. And now it hijacks the prefrontal cortex, where the prefrontal cortex is not going to be fully accessible. And now I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know how to be calm. I don't know how to create safety. I don't know how to even empathize with you. In order for us to address that disconnection, we got to address the emotional, the amygdala, the emotional part of the brain. So everything, that's why you see people becoming either anxious, they become more aggressive in their pursuit, or they become more avoidant. That's the negative cycle that is happening. And the way out of it is to be accessible, responsive, and engaged emotionally. So what Jack talked about, the questions, do I matter to you? Am I important to you? You value me? Everything has to do with the question, are you there for me? A-R-E. And there's we have a little radar in our brain that assesses those questions. And the attachment key question, are you accessible to me emotionally? Are you able to share what is happening for you? Share impact versus feedback. Are you responsive to me emotionally? Can you tune into my emotions? Can you hold that space for me without giving me suggestions, without giving me problem solving? Just stay with me emotionally. And are you engaged with me emotionally? Even though you don't agree with me, can you still stay emotionally engaged with me? So my brain is constantly assessing that connection with my key attachment figures. So what we find is that people get triggered, either facial expression, words they say, their tone of voice. Even the tone of voice makes people triggered. And then they disconnect and they go into two options. They either become pursuers, anxious attachment style, or they become withdrawers. They basically avoid. And then you start to see these behaviors that are happening. And the more they behave this way, the more they feel isolated, alone, the more their productivity suffers, the engagement suffers, the conversation suffers, and then you get stuck again because you get triggered by how the other person responds. And once they start to learn about their own triggers and raw spots and emotions and automatic thoughts and behaviors, they become much more aware how they impact each other. And so they start to change the dance. We look at the relationship or interaction as a dance, and emotion is the music of the dance. Everything that you do with every person that you work with, you're actually dancing with them into that emotion. And emotion is what drives you into that relationship. So the disconnections gets people stuck in this isolation and aloneness. Is that there are three different types of cycles that people get into. There's a pursue, withdraw cycle, which is attack, withdraw. Then there's a find the bad guy cycle, which two people are basically going at each other, trying to find who is the bad guy. And then there's a withdraw cycle, which they just avoid each other. All the people around them in the team or in the companies, they can sense what is happening. So everyone gets impacted by these negative cycles. And when you talk about toxic culture, well, that means there's a lot of negative cycles going on everywhere in the company. What we know is that these negative cycles really create a lot of distress for your mental health, lack of productivity, disengagement. People become very tunnel in their vision. They're not very open to collaborate or to engage or even look at different options. And even training, when you get people into your training groups or in your training classes, if they're disconnected in their relationship, it's going to be very difficult for them to even take in anything that you're teaching. So emotional well-being is really a pathway for them to continue to grow and develop. Everything really starts with the power of emotion. Emotion is really a key organizing element that needs to be changed in order to change the interaction.